Hey, what's going on? Have a seat.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. How are things going?
Okay, I guess.
Okay. Did you receive my feedback from the
Yeah,
literature review?
I just saw it yesterday.
Okay.
At night.
And I saw in your reflection you had some questions about. Well, it seems like you have some questions about the literature review or about original ideas and.
I
Or
think
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna. It's because
Uh-huh.
in our academic class we said that we couldn't include like any original ideas. It was
Uh-huh.
like citation after citation
Okay.
after citation.
Okay.
We could only include like then or later
Okay.
on this author mentioned.
Okay.
So I was like a little bit confused, but I think I'm gonna like change, well, like correct everything and like read see the videos that you have uploaded again so that I
Okay.
can correct it.
If you want to look at specifically something, we can look at that now or later. If you're still not sure about um, a certain paragraph or certain sentence,
Okay.
the one thing I want to draw your attention to, or that I want it to be very clear for you, is that try to look at each sentence and ask yourself if it's an original idea or not. And if it's not an original idea, you need to include a citation. So if you can try to look at each sentence in terms of is it an original idea or not, and just so that you're clear about whether or not you need to include a citation. Okay, I think that's the main thing that it appears that there's some confusion there. So when I looked at your literature review.
And also, I have a question. If I have, for example, like this author and this author, and then the citation,
Right.
and then I say they also mention that I still have to include a citation.
I would.
Oh, okay.
Now, I would include a citation again. Now, when you do that, ask yourself, look at both sentences, and ask yourself, is there a way that you can word it to where you can bring those two sentences together?
Oh.
Okay. If you absolutely can't, that's fine. But in most cases, I would try to bring those two sentences together. Find a way to connect into one sentence so that you just have the one citation and all those ideas in there.
Okay.
So take a look at that and try. Yeah, and if if you says the author also states this, just include the citation again, just to be on the safe side. I'd rather you have it there than not. And I think most of the cases were just that you left out the citation, something that you had already cited perhaps. I'm not sure because some of them I just kind of searched and I didn't really even look on every case if it was what you had already cited. I think you did it. I detected it a couple of times, but the point is, just be careful with the citations. That every sentence, if it's coming from outside source, you have your citation. That way, you won't have any problems. And then the next step is to make sure that most of your ideas are original ideas, and I think that's maybe, yeah. And when you look at a paragraph, make sure that you can identify each sentence as one of the four types. Is it a main idea? Is it evidence? Is it analyze or link?
Okay.
And really, the only type of sentence that you're going to have citations for in general will be the evidence.
Okay.
The main idea, your original thought. The analyze, you're commenting on the evidence. So you're talking about the evidence in relationship to the main idea.
Okay.
So that's where you're comparing and contrasting, you're analyzing, synthesizing. You might compare it to something that you've already mentioned, but that you're talking about the evidence. Yeah, you're just talking about it in terms of the main idea.
Okay.
So that requires that you have also a topic sentence that's fairly clear, that one idea.
Okay.
And then the linking sentence obviously is your main idea. So if you look at that, now you might have one or two, maybe three sentences that are evidence that require citations, but everything else should be an original idea that talks about the evidence. So try to.
It's because it's completely different to what we did
Okay.
last
All right.
semester.
So yeah, try to. And these are. It's really. Yeah. So yeah, the main idea is not to oversight because if you have more than 50% as citations, that's also plagiarism.
Okay.
So even though everything's cited correctly, APA is fine. So yeah, I just want to make sure clarify that we still have time to adjust your grade. What I'm telling everyone and what I included in the notes in Canvas is the way that I'm grading is I'm giving feedback obviously for each of the products, each of the parts of the first draft of the literature review, and I'm giving a grade for each one. On May 23rd, obviously you're going to have time to make changes and modifications for everything that you're doing, each of the parts. But when I look at your final draft on May 23rd, I'm going to give you another grade, and that has more weight than the rest of the grades. And I'm also looking, if you improve, make those changes, obviously you're going to have a higher grade for the first draft, and I'll go back and I'll adjust each of the individual grades. So don't be concerned about the actual individual grades, because what I'm concerned about is that you make the changes so that first draft is as good as it can be. Okay, so when you turn in your first draft to me, which is actually the final draft as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to give you feedback, and that same draft will be forwarded to the other tutors whenever you give your mock presentation. They will also hopefully make comments. So you'll receive, after that first draft on May 23rd, you'll receive my comments for the last time and their comments. And you'll have some time to make those changes for the final draft. Okay, so hopefully by that point, my goal here is that we work together and you change everything so that first draft, any changes that are still required will be minimal. Okay, because obviously you're not going to have much time either. You're just going to have a few days to make those final changes, and then you'll need to print it out, which will take some time, a little bit of time. You'll want it to look professional and things, so you'll need maybe a little bit extra time to do that, but you're not going to have a lot of time to make that final draft that you will then give to the examiners. So again, I want us to get close so that it's just a few changes that you have to make. And we still have time. You have now until the 23rd. I would recommend that you make these changes in your literature review as soon as possible while it's still fresh. Ask me if we need to talk about it. You can either bring it in our tutoring sessions if you feel you need additional explanation beyond our tutoring sessions. We can schedule time. It's no problem. But the main thing is that you understand the feedback that I'm giving, and that you make those changes so that you have those for the first draft or final draft, whatever, on May 23rd. Okay?
Yeah, I think I have, in the meal, I have some main ideas. I have evidence. I have a lot of evidence, but I'm missing the analyzing.
Right, and that's what I was. That's the thing. I think you could add a lot more original thought, talking about the analyzing the evidence.
Right,
talking about.
I'm sorry. And if I analyze the evidence, I will have to take some because I have a lot. So I'll probably have to take some evidence out because
and again, look for opportunities to say the same thing, but a little bit more with less words.
Okay.
Because you have a lot of good information, a lot of good evidence there. Maybe you need to take some out, but I also think you can kind of look at it and say, okay, well, maybe I can just say the same thing, especially in those cases where you say the author also says. You can kind of bring those in together. In most cases, I think you can do that.
Okay.
And then that frees up more time to offer other evidence. So one author says this, another author says this, and then you analyze. Or one author says this, you analyze. Another author says this, then you analyze. Right? So there's a lot of flexibility in how you present it, but it should be kind of logical, and that when you present the evidence, always make sure you follow it up with an analyze. Because sometimes, and I don't know if this was your case, but sometimes I see at the end of the paragraph one or two things. One, the very last sentence is evidence.
Oh.
Okay, so or I see evidence and then maybe a linking sentence. Like when I see evidence and then one more sentence, I know something's missing, either an analyzed sentence or a linking sentence.
Okay.
So try to follow kind of that pattern. The way in which you present the evidence is open. You can do, like I said, evidence, analyze, or evidence, analyze. But the idea is to have more or less of an equal balance between what the evidence is that you show and your comments.
Okay.
So does that make sense there?
Yeah.
So kind of look at each paragraph in isolation there and just kind of say, okay, is it fully developed in this sense? And I use the meal plan, but it's there are other we're basically talking about paragraph development, and so so that's just take a look at that, and if you have any questions or specific questions, you can ask me in Google Drive if you want to leave a question and let me know in Canvas, and I'll take a look at it, or obviously we can discuss it face to face.
Yes. Is there somebody who did like a really, really good job so I can like
Lucia.
Lucy? Okay.
Lucy. I call Lucy, not Luce Chavez, but Lucia. Lucy Lopez. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Take a look at hers.
Okay.
She's pretty close. I gave some feedback, and everybody, there are comments for all of them, but she did a good job with, I think, keeping the balance pretty much in there, and take a look at that. Okay. Any other questions about the literature review? Okay, so this week 6, we're beginning our instrument design. We have 4 weeks. And so the first thing we need to do is look again at our research questions and think about the designs. Now, you mentioned in your reflection that you had some ideas. What are you thinking about as far as the instruments that you want to use?
Well, it's observation, so I'll probably have like an observation sheet to check, like a checklist or something like that, and interviews. So I have, for like the interviews, there's one that asks like why did you decide to change, or do you reflect? When do you take time to reflect about it? Does reflecting make you change anything about the lesson plan? So those kind of questions are asked in the interview.
Okay, and are you? Let's see. So observation sheets. Are you? Let's see. Are you also considering looking at a written lesson plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so that could be another type of data source.
Okay.
When we look at our different instruments, think of them too as like what data sources could I be using. So I'm also going to list written lesson plans.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be just a document. So you'll have copies of those that you can analyze, your observation sheets and interviews. And I think at this point we're only focusing on the teacher, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Only on teacher.
Okay, so and how many teachers are you considering?
I think I want to do a case study.
Okay, the only thing that would be cautious about. There's always a risk when doing a case study with one teacher because you're completely dependent on that one teacher.
Yeah.
So or the school with where they work. So for example, I mean if school's canceled one day, it could be outside the control of the teacher. You show up and so there's a risk. So I want you to pay close attention, really consider strongly which teacher, which school it is that you want to research, so that you don't have these problems. That again, think about the school, think about the days that they're off, think about the level of accessibility that the teacher is willing to give you, all of those things. And if you aren't sure, it's well worth doing some sort of survey or interview or discussion, some sort of process before, so that you select a teacher for a particular reason. When you do a case study, that is in this case one teacher, or one group, there should be a reason why you chose this group that is, in this case, different than another group. You chose this teacher because this teacher or this group is unique in some way, or the situation is different than others that you want to research. So whenever the examiners ask you why did you teach this or choose this particular teacher, you have a rationale.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, and this should be included briefly in your method section when you talk about your participant. Okay, describing not only the process in which you chose to choose that teacher, but the rationale. Why? Why did you choose this teacher? Because this group had particular difficulties in this, or the teacher told me this, and I wanted to understand more of this, that type of thing. So in order to get that information, you probably need to apply some sort of questionnaire that that will give you this information. So thinking about a school, I don't know if you have a teacher or school in mind at this point.
Yeah, it's my friend Monica. She works in the START program.
Okay.
And
All right. So we need to have a reason why that's beyond friendship.
Well, she has like a lot of problems with her groups because like the first one is like they still don't like speak English. And
Okay.
she has like discipline problems, like a lot of.
All right. If you can think of, and you think her situation is really unique compared to others.
I think well, it's because like in the school she works, it has like a low income, so we don't know if like that's the problem or she's
Okay.
having like a real hard time with
All right.
with that girl.
All right. So at least then maybe you can think of questionnaire or that can ask very specific questions about her class.
Okay.
Okay, and about and it can even be related to some of the research questions here about how she maybe adapts classes, but it's really kind of trying to get detailed information about the problems and the situation that she faces, so that you can use that. You have kind of official, information there that you can use to justify, why you chose this teacher.
If not, I can observe like 2 teachers.
Yeah, I mean, you can observe 2 teachers, 3 teachers. If you want to apply, how many teachers work at her school?
No, like English teachers.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe.
So one option is to apply a questionnaire to those 5 or 6 teachers, the same one. Look at them, and then you decide at that point if you want to focus on 1, 2, or 3 teachers, and which teachers. That would be ideal.
Okay.
And if it turns out that Monica is one of them, and another thing too is include questions like, would you be willing to participate in the study?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have time to spend and indicate, I don't know, 2 or 3 interviews for 15, 20 minutes each,
Okay.
things like that, and then they're going to tell you, well, no, I don't have time or whatever, and then you can make a better decision. Again, thinking like if you choose one teacher, you can be really, assured to the best that you can possibly be that this teacher will be available for you to give you the information you need for your research.
Okay. But if it's not like a case study, 2 teachers would be.
Yeah, you can do a case. You can do a case study with 1 teacher. You can do a case study with 2 or 3.
Oh, so.
Yeah, it would be kind of a multiple case study kind of a. But yeah, so I would still consider it a case study,
If it was.
even if it were 2 or 3 teachers. But again, with a case study, what's really unique with a case study is choosing those cases for a particular reason, that they're different or unique in some way, and the questionnaire, the examiners may ask you, well, why do, and they should ask you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you should state at the beginning in your presentation where they don't even have to ask you. I chose these teachers or this one teacher because they were unique, they were different, even within the school. They were all low income and all this, but these 2 had told me this, and I wanted to pursue that, and it's probably could also be related to your research questions. It depends, if they say something like, I have a lot of even if it's just something that you may appear to be outside the scope of your research, they may say, I have a lot of students who have learning disabilities, and I have to really be changing my lessons and all that. Okay, well, even though you're not focusing on learning disabilities, you chose it to better understand the context within your research questions. See?
Oh,
So-
well, one of the things that you mentioned, she said that they never bring like their material.
Okay,
So
something
she
like
asked
that.
for material, like because she has like I don't know, they're going to do something with like paper or scissors.
Those are
and
the
glue,
things you're looking for,
and
right?
they don't.
And
they
if
don't
you,
bring
let's say
it.
you apply this questionnaire to 5 teachers, and if they all tell you that same thing, okay, well maybe it's not that big of a deal. But if she's the only teacher that mentions that, then that would be something that you could justify. So that's kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, okay.
That might be an example. There could be a lot of different examples.
Okay.
I mean, there's an endless amount of possibilities, but you're just looking for something different. That's the thing. And it could be 1 teacher, 2 or 3. So let's think about doing a questionnaire. It can be very basic. I would probably, since there are not a lot of teachers involved, if you're thinking about one school, I'm assuming you're thinking about one school, then I would stick primarily to open questions, so it won't be too time consuming to analyze that. But think of it kind of as a filter as far as then using that to choose your participants, or your participant if it's one teacher. And we can look at it and don't think so much in terms of the research questions. It's related, but again, it's more about trying to understand maybe the challenges that they face, or things that they like. It's really general questions, just to see if there's one teacher or 2 teachers that stand out. Okay. So for next week, let's think about a kind of a questionnaire for the teachers. If you have something, if you could put something together for your observation sheet that you could use, bring that.
Okay.
And let's look at an interview guide. So think about doing a semi-structured interview where you have a list of key questions that you can answer. So think of the guide as either being a list of questions, or it could be just a list of concepts or notes that will help you remind yourself at the moment that you're doing the interview that you are asking all the right questions. But try to keep it as conversational as possible. So you're not going to want it like every single question that you answer and you just go down a list of questions, but it's going to be more conversational. And based on what they tell you, you kind of direct the conversation to get the information that you need. So you want them not to feel that they're being interrogated, but it's more just kind of a questioning. It's more like conversational, more relaxed, so that they feel more willing and open to express, what they want to express.
Okay, the interview is okay, but the observation sheet, how would what would I do? Like a checklist, or?
Well, you could do a checklist. Now you have here.
Because I'm gonna have like the lesson plan. Can I make comments on the lesson plan, or?
All right, the first thing is, if you don't have anything from a prior research that you think relates to this, okay, what I would recommend, you're going to have the lesson plan, and there's several ways that you can do this. This pen doesn't work. I lost my good pen. Wait, I got it. Okay. One really basic way to do it here is, at the beginning you want to have information about the class, so you're going to want to know the day and the time and all that. But then below that, one way to do this is to break down each class, each lesson, into like activities or chunks. So you might have time. Let's see, you're looking at let's say, I'm going to say activity, and then description. Now, since you're going to have, if you have the lesson plan first, and I would recommend trying to get that first, so you can kind of analyze it first, and so you're aware of what the teacher's going to do. What I would do is break down what you observe into chunks. So using this very simple format, you have your watch with you. When they start something, let's say at the beginning of class, they call roll. So Let's say they start like at 8:02, and it's by minute. So they start calling roll. Activity, roll call, or whatever. And in this case, there's not much description. They're just calling roll. Let's say they finish at 8:05. Okay. Then they start the next activity.
Okay.
And you have activity
okay.
and description. And then so it's like 8:06. And now the activity, let's say it's some sort of a video warm-up thing. So, okay, if you want to classify warm-up, the classifications are for you. So you decide how you want to classify it. They may be classified based on the lesson plan.
Yeah, because I think they call it lead-in.
So whatever they call, if you want to use, a vocabulary that's coming directly from the lesson plan, then you use that. Whatever makes sense for you, but it's just a classification, and then you describe. One thing that you want to try to avoid when you're doing an observation is not to analyze while you're observing. So it's you just recalling whatever happens. What do you see? What do they do? And what do they say? What does the teacher do? What does the teacher say? What do the students say? And what do they do? And you are just writing. What do you observe? Writing as much as possible. When they finish that one activity, then you have an ending time, 8:15, and so on. You continue in this way. Now the actual format's going to be fairly basic. You're going to have, like I said, the header, the heading at the top. You might have just one case where you have time, activity, and description. But then the rest of it I would leave blank, because you're not going to know how much space you're going to need. Unless you're using a computer too. You could also do the same thing with a computer. But I would avoid not putting like all this information on there, because you may need to write more, So, but the purpose of doing the observation sheet is for you to then later go back and recall what you saw, and then you can analyze.
Okay.
So you're not analyzing, you're not going to put on here deviated from the lesson plan. All you're concerned about is recalling what you see, or writing down what you see. And that's why sometimes a checklist can be distracting, because you have a list of all these things, and half the time you're looking for things. You see something, you look, and by the time you go back, you miss something.
Yeah, okay.
So I think the idea here is just to recall everything you can. Obviously, if you can videotape, it helps, or at least an audio.
Okay.
I think it would help here, even though you're not doing a discourse analysis so much on the language, but still, if you with the audio and your written work, you can kind of recall better and analyze, I think, more effectively if you do it like this. So this is one way to do it. It's very simple, but I think effective, and it also kind of gives you a way of saying, okay, how long did they deviate? Because one of the things is, when did they deviate from the lesson plan? How long was like the whole class a deviation, or was it chunks? Does the teacher tend to deviate more at the beginning or at the end? Well, this will be able to. You will tell you that, right?
Okay. Yes.
And now you have some questions about reflection. It's not and this is normal part of the process. When we start talking about instruments and really thinking concretely how we're going to collect and what type of data we're going to collect, it's okay and it's common to reevaluate our research questions and perhaps adapt. So I want you this week to think, as you are designing your instruments, to take another look. I'm not suggesting we change the whole research question, but look at these and ask yourself if these are still the same questions exactly that you want to research, and that your instruments are doing that. So, for example, in this case, if you want to research more about when they are deviating, that might be an additional question, or one question that you can adapt here is asking when does the teacher deviate from the lesson plan, because we are addressing that here in our lesson plans. But I want you to think about it, and if you think there are some changes that need to be made, update them there, and we can certainly talk about those as well if you're not sure. But one thing is to try to adapt. If you're happy with these questions, fine, and adapt.
This is like the when, and the interview would be like the why.
The interview would be
why do they deviate?
Why do they deviate? Right. How do teachers deviate in the lesson plan? Okay, and when does reflection happen? For example, you might add a third question: when do they deviate?
Okay.
I mean, it's when do they deviate? Could also be a question, because one thing is when do they reflect, and then another is when do they deviate, and another is how they deviate. So the how is a little bit different than the when. So it might, you only have two questions, so I mean, it wouldn't. Just think about it, and we can talk about that again, next week. But how do teachers deviate in the lesson plan according to the objectives? So how do they deviate? And in your description, you might be looking at like materials that they use, because this might indicate how. But when you start analyzing in these descriptions, this is where you're going to be looking for, patterns that relate to the first question about. It could be materials. It could be, I don't know, maybe the order, whatever. So. What else? So I think that's okay. The purpose here is to triangulate our information, and right now we have 3 different types, and I think that will work. Actually, we'll have 3 plus kind of a questionnaire. So you can also use that information from the questionnaire if it relates to your research questions. So. So next week, let's look at that. At this point, we have 4 weeks for our design. If I'm going to work at your pace, if you finish up in 1 or 2 weeks with your instruments and you feel you're ready, we feel that you're ready to, with your data collection, you can begin before. You don't have to wait, and that would give you more time for your data collection. So it's really up to you. Obviously, I think let's work together, come to an agreement. Making sure everything is ready to apply. But as soon as you have everything together, plan on go ahead and begin with the data collection. One other question I want to ask you: do you need permission to do your study at the school?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, now's the time to start that process. I know we have in the language department a format for some students, for some schools. I don't know if your school or the school that you're thinking about needs or requires a special format, but now's the time to do that because this will take time. So definitely now's the time to go and ask for permission, ask what they need, and start the process, because usually it requires somebody to sign, which means it sits on somebody's desk for however long, and you may need to keep calling and bugging, but try to get the permission as soon as possible, so whenever you do have your instruments, you can begin, and you're not waiting, because I've seen that too. They wait to the last minute, and then they're waiting for somebody, and then, well, I can't start because I don't have permission, and then they start having less time to collect the data. So
I'll see if I can get if they do need it, and
just
the name and
and let me know if there's problems or issues or something that let me know, just so that I don't want you to have problems with the permission. So double check that, and next week let's look at your instruments. Okay, and we can continue on with the process. Okay. And so
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
See you
next week.
Bye.
Bye.